Out of the gates and ready to go for Hot Mike with Hutton and Withrow. Today, another program linked to illegal gambling in college hoops. We'll discuss what that means moving forward. Taylor Swift, how much has she made the NFL? Almost $1 billion. Plus, Matthew Stafford could be on the move. Like, comment, and subscribe to the OutKick YouTube channel. Let's get it going, shall we? Hot Mike, Hutton and Withrow here at OutKick.com and right here on the YouTube page. Chad, another program. Here we go. It's going to be never-ending. Another program linked to illegal gambling. It's in hoops, just not Jonte Porter in the NBA. It is in college basketball with Fresno State. So while this is continuing with the investigation with the case with the Raptors and Jonte Porter, of course, he's banned for life from the association, as he should be. Fresno State comes out on Saturday that there are a few players involved in this that are being alleged to have been involved in some gambling activity. 2 players that would not play on Saturday, Jalen Weaver, Zayon Collins. There's an internal inquiry there about betting activity. And then there's a former player, Michael Robinson, no longer with the team. He hasn't played since January. He's also a part of this investigation. Every time I see a story like this, I'm thinking, man, how many more instances of this are there across collegiate athletics because of the vast scope of things? Think about how many suspensions we've seen in the NFL. You know, just for having the app that you're not allowed to have, or what we saw with Porter last season with Toronto. What we've seen in college football with the kickers, you know, Iowa and Iowa State. This is not a one-off, but it's extremely serious because of how it affects the landscape of athletics and the betting public and the audience involved.
Well, think about how many people how many people bet on the Super Bowl, or how many people bet on the Four Nations final between the U.S. and Canada. You know, big events like that. And now think about how many people are betting on Fresno State Air Force in the Mountain West.
Yeah,
when Fresno State is 5-23 on the season. I think one of the toughest jobs in all of sports is to be a coach that has to try to keep together a team that has nowhere to go. They know by mid-December, early January, this season is going nowhere. We are not good. We're not going to make any tournament. We're not going to make the CBI, much less the NCAA tournament. How do you keep people together? How do you keep people playing? That's always been a challenge at every level of sport, especially in college. I'd say especially at other levels where there's not as much to play for. But in college, it's an issue. So now when you throw in the curveball of NIL and players can get paid legally now and players can enter the transfer portal and leave at any point, it makes it that much more complicated. And you throw in online sports gambling being legalized and everything. Hutton, there's just so many different avenues now. If you're on a 5-23 Fresno State team and you're 11th in the Mountain West Conference, which they are, and you feel like I'm not getting the NIL that I deserve here, or we're not any good, how can I make a little extra money? Well, there's an easy way. And in their mind, they're thinking, I'm not at Duke, I'm not at Kansas, I'm not at Kentucky, I'm at Fresno State. Hardly anyone's going to our games. No one cares about us. Who cares if I get a little bit of money? It's like Tony in Blue Chips, the movie, which is fictional but now very, very serious. When you look at the plot to it, Tony says, who cares? We still won the game. That's only for the gamblers, right? I just took money from the gamblers. I went below the point spread. I didn't do anything wrong. Well, I think there's easy ways to justify it in your own mind of doing what is completely the wrong thing, totally unethical, and can ruin the credibility of a sport. And that's why you want to see these issues to be very, very isolated. And hopefully it is. Yeah, I mean, the Mountain West has confirmed all this. So, it's unclear, according to the Fresno Bee, if the Fresno State players were involved in, the actual gambling aspect of this. The investigation is, for the most part, kind of private to this point. But you think about what happened with, of course, Toronto with the Raptors. But what was his last name? Bohannon, the baseball coach at Alabama. Insider information there. calling his buddy in Cincinnati at the ballpark.
For Alabama baseball.
Right?
Games.
Wasn't there like a ballpark deal at the Reds ballpark he was betting before the game started?
Yeah, he was around that area, yes. And then it was the amount that he was trying to wager.
That's what raised some suspicion.
That really triggered the gambling company, that raised the flag on that. In this case, it tends to be the amount wagered. You mentioned, it's a great point. You got Fresno State hoops. It's 5-22 or whatever the record is, and here comes a decent amount of money that's raise an eyebrow to it all of a sudden. Yeah, and then there's got to be a trend to it, I would suspect, because with Jonte Porter, it wasn't just one time that this occurred. More than one time before he got caught doing. Well,
and there's so many ways to try to game the system. There's a big gap between your buddies or have contact with a college program or a player, and that player or program tips you off to, hey, this guy who's listed as probable, who's our leading scorer, isn't playing tomorrow at 11 a.m., or you're just having a conversation with someone, I'm going to go put $1,000 on the under on that game or this team to cover, having that bit of knowledge. Now, you're gambling in that sense too, right? You're not fixing anything, but you're taking insider information and you're placing a bet because you feel like you've got the upper hand in the game. That's a completely different thing. That's trying to get an advantage of the game. If this is a player or players at Fresno State who's either through a third party or themselves betting on them to not cover the spread or to lose outright or whatever it is, or telling a friend, hey, we got you tomorrow against BYU or whatever game it was, right? We are not going to win this game, and we are not going to cover. I can guarantee it. That's fixing the game.
That's different.
That's completely throwing and fixing the game, and we're talking about a different level of what I think is pretty common across pro sports and college sports, the first part I'm talking about, versus we are now going to fix the game.
So Fresno State Student Athlete Handbook states that gambling on outside teams will result in ineligibility for at least 1 year, loss of a season of competition. Gambling on Fresno State games will result in permanent ineligibility.
And I think that's what we're talking about. I don't see it. Just looking at their record and looking at the scope of the investigation, who all's been suspended already, I don't think we're talking about someone who bet on other college basketball games in the ACC or something. I think this is either they or people very close to them were betting large amounts of money against Fresno State.
And, I mean, they're, like you said, they're awful, but there's a way to, of course, make money off of 9 straight losses. Losing by an average of 14 points per game.
Wasn't the Iowa and Iowa State thing, weren't they betting unders?
The kicker bet the under, but he made his kick.
Right. So, but my point being, which is funny when you think about Iowa especially.
But the kicker bet the under, yes. That's
right.
hilarious.
I mean, everybody bets the under on Iowa, so he's no different from the betting
I think it was
public.
the Iowa State kicker.
The Iowa State period. But
yeah.
Again, I'm two different things. Like Pete Rose said, we only bet on my own team, right? Was his big contention at one point. That's what people said about him. He was only betting on the team he managed, the Reds at the time. Doesn't really matter. But it does, because to me there's a big difference between I'm the kicker and I bet the under because I feel like our defenses are going to shine in this game or the weather's bad or whatever, versus I'm the kicker, I'm betting the under, I'm going to make $50,000 if I yank 4 kicks in this game on purpose.
So
throwing the game versus I think I have insider information, both bad. 2 different levels of it. I suspect Fresno State is involved in a death threat level here. And what I mean by death threat is death penalty to the players.
And they got rid of one of the players already.
And the program going to be hit very hard because I think they've committed some serious crimes. If I had to guess, based on the silence around it and what's going on, I think it's going to be really bad.
Let me ask it this way, because I ponder this question to myself too. Do you think the leagues, by and large, want true... they truly pursue integrity, or is it the perception of integrity?
Both, but I think the perception is more important.
The perception, by and large, is more important. I think for NCAA, it's more than just the perception of it.
Yeah,
and they have that group. Just think about how many college basketball teams there are. Have the access to it. They've already done away with props, like individual player props. I think is that state by state. You can't do it in Tennessee. We cannot wager
in college sports. Yeah, you can.
On college sports on player props. I
don't think that's a national
yards.
thing, though. I think there are states where you can.
I think so.
Wager college player props.
Point being, I just don't if we enjoy getting on the apps and doing this stuff, right? Like, I don't want to see the collegiate aspect of it go away. I just don't know how you prevent it and not have your skeptics. And I'm trying not to, I want them to do their investigations. I want them to do their due diligence. I also have to tell myself it is impossible for them to keep this from happening. With the scope of where this goes and how the games you can bet on.
Hutton, I can only speak as someone who doesn't throw games or fix games, right? Like, I'm not the mob. So I'm on the different side of this. When I bet a game, when I'm playing my YouTube TV multi-view parlay at night, like, I want to make sure that Wagner and LIU Brooklyn are on the up and up if I'm betting on that game. Like, that to me is the Hippocratic oath of sports. I've talked about this a lot, but do no harm. If you go into the ER, your assumption is this doctor who you've never met has their MD and abides by the Hippocratic oath that they're not going to harm you.
And they're not hungover.
Anyway. Yeah, and that they're in a good state of mind and that they're clear of mind, steady of hand.
Right.
All of those things, right? Like, that's what I think when I watch a sport. We all want to believe that. So, Hutton, you're talking about integrity versus the perception of. Both are very important, but perception is so important because if I'm someone who's going to bet $20 on a game that I'm going to watch, the one thing I want to believe while watching it is every coach, every player, every official in this game, they're at least trying their best, or they're trying to win the game. They're trying to positively affect the game for their side. That's it. It's a very simple premise. It's not you're going to see mistakes. Guys are going to get sick. Guys are going to get hurt. It's not going to look good at times. You're going to question the integrity of the game based on how bad a team is playing at times. All those things are totally fair. But it can't actually be thrown. It can't actually be fixed. And if you get more stories like this with Fresno State, and this becomes something that's bigger and bigger, that's the problem you have with the sport. I really think it's a problem with the NBA after the Tim Donaghy deal, right?
Tim Donaghy and then Jonte Porter. So I think the perception, it's tough for players to throw games if you're playing. I mean, the Fresno State play, they are not charged with anything yet. They again, this is just the internal investigation.
It's also very easy to throw a game if you're a basketball player.
Let's give an example.
If you're a star player,
Jonte Porter,
it is very easy to throw a game if you want to.
Jonte Porter, though, it's easy to affect like individual props with him because he wasn't playing all that much. He's the end of the bench player, but when he came in, he knew if players ahead of him were banged up or he knew when
he's going to get more playing time.
Yeah, he knew when he was going to play that night, and then he could play over under so many minutes, over under so many rebounds or points, and then I'm not feeling well, or I turned my ankle. And then once he plays and then he's out, he hits the under.
Yep.
You know, like when you start hearing that, it makes sense. From just the over under or the final score and the spread, Chad, the way to throw a game is just if you're the top player, don't take the shot. You know?
Yeah.
And if
turn it over.
You turn it over.
I mean, you can easily, I'm going to drive hard to the basket, and I'm going to try to throw out to a three-point shooter and launch it a little bit over his head.
You don't box out very well. You allow an offensive rebound and a putback.
Just go watch Blue Chips.
You foul.
Go watch the film that Nick Nolte was watching on Tony, where he's throwing the ball right to the defense for a layup the other way, right?
Foul on a three.
Yeah, he's not giving any effort on defense. There's a blow-by, and he's not doing anything on it. Like, it's those little clips. You could do a mashup of things like that for one of these players. And I'm sure people are doing it.
And one of the guys...
If you go back and look at what they bet on or their associates bet on, I guarantee you there are people combing through that game film looking to see whether or not they threw the game.
Well, one of the guys that was held out on Saturday is their leading scorer. So, and again, a leading scorer for a bad team. 9 games in a row going into their game against Air Force.
So... we're talking about
their record against the spread, by the way, is 14-11-2.
Look, there are going to be people who are like, what's wrong is wrong is wrong is wrong, and everything is the same sin and the same. No, it's not. I'm telling you, like, if someone who's not playing in the game but's on the team, or a kicker bets an under, but you can show that they weren't intentionally missing kicks, that's not good, and that's a scandal that you have in your hands. It's not as bad as someone telling their buddies or doing it themselves and saying, make sure you bet on the opponent in this game. We're going to go under. We're going to make sure that we lose by that amount. That's a totally different animal.
But Vegas can know in advance. You know?
Vegas what?
I'm saying Vegas, they normally know in advance.
Well, and I'm sure someone in Vegas tipped off Fresno State, who then tipped off the NCAA, is my guess.
Yeah, but Vegas, like, what do we say if a player's questionable, and then all of a sudden the spread changes? Like, oh, guess he's not playing. they somehow know first too, and
Right.
they're able to change the line before the inside bets get going.
Well, my point is,
which is intriguing to me too. How they know.
They don't want this. So
I know
they're the last one. So if they see some weird stuff going on, they're going to alert the school.
They want to keep and
say, hey,
the legal angle going.
Or if you're one of these online sports books, hey, this guy has an account under this name, or we've seen some weird activity with this account in 4 Fresno State games this year, and we found this relationship or whatever.
Yep.
They're going to help get to the bottom of it.
If we could bet on this, I think it would be an instant winner. And to my knowledge, as of right now, Travis Hunter has participated in everything at the Combine this week, right? I think that's the case. He is about to be the star headline coming out of Indianapolis because he's the two position star already. He's going to be doing workouts at wide receiver too. The cornerback aspect is where there's going to be a lot of buzz because some say he's a better corner. He's fit for corner in the league more than wide receiver. Others say he's got to prove more at corner. I'm here to say the Heisman Trophy winner is about to show up and ball out. And he's going to put on a show to where the buzz coming out of the Combine is going to be Travis Hunter, number 1 overall. I think that's because the top 2 quarterbacks in a weak quarterback class, they're not throwing. They're not doing anything here. And, I mean, the next guy in line is the pass rusher who's going to be doing corner drills, cornering on speed tests. And you get Travis Hunter against Air. The guy's going to put on a show. I can't wait to see how he does. I think his personality is going to be great, too, behind in the interviews. Chad, I really like him. I like how he handled himself at Colorado. I like the fact that, he initially goes to Jackson State after bypassing Power 5, and he's the 5-star high school phenom who is now won a Heisman Trophy at Colorado, and now he could be potentially number 1 overall if the Titans choose not to go quarterback and not to trade out. I think he's going to have number 1 qualities here in Indy.
Well, you can always tell when someone has surrounded themselves with smart people around them on their team.
Yeah.
Agent, PR type stuff. I was blown away this past year when Travis Hunter, on his bye week, went to Happy Valley and appeared live on College Game Day. You remember that? I remember coming and talking about that.
Yeah.
Like, this is crazy. Now a college football player, when their team isn't playing, is flying out on his own, or probably not on his own, getting some help, and they can, to go out and be a guest. And I was really impressed with him during that interview. And I'm thinking, this guy's got a smart marketing team behind him. So I'm curious to see more of that as he gets ready for this draft because he is going to be, like, if positioned properly, Hutton, he's such a unicorn in that we treat Bo Jackson with mythical legendary status. Now, that's across multiple sports. We treated his coach at Colorado, Deion Sanders. I mean, I can still remember the storyline of him playing for the Falcons early afternoon and getting there in the 3rd inning for the Braves World Series game that night, playing both sports in the same day. Incredible. Yep. I still think about that to this day, and that happened when I was a kid. If presented properly, this guy could have a similar type of effect going both ways. And if that's what he does, he's not going to go full-time, understand that, but it can be that type of special player that we're talking about for a while, and we're seeing a lot of commercials around him.
And see if you agree. The extra quality that I love about Travis Hunter is his makeup of toughness. The dude took a dirty hit on the sideline a year and a half ago. What was was it the spleen? What was it that he ruptured?
Lacerated, maybe?
Lacerated spleen.
Lacerated spleen. It was the same injury I remember that our buddy Billy Volek got one game. Remember he was in a hospital
postgame
in San Diego after a lacerated spleen
the
on him?
The dude was back in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Like that, and he's the star player. Like I really, there's just an unsaid, unspoken quality about that you just can't manufacture. You've either got that or you don't. It's just an internal mindset. He was going to be back and play, and guess what else he didn't do? He didn't talk trash about it. Others were saying it was a dirty hit.
Yeah.
He just came back and continued to put up numbers. I like it.
I remember Deion Sanders also impressed me during that whole back and forth with Colorado State. during that time where he was good about it. Like he didn't like the hit.
Right.
Didn't act like he liked it,
out.
but he was respectful to the players and the coach on the other side with Colorado State the whole time too.
So coming up, we've got Bobby Carpenter in about 10 minutes or so. We've got Ian O'Connor later in the show, a great author, plus Ross Tucker. And Ross is coming on with, he's a part of a group now that I believe got an idea from the Swifties. We'll let him say it. But Taylor Swift has made the NFL, in the headline at OutKick, nearly $1 billion since she began dating Travis Kelce. I see that and I think, what has she made Travis Kelce?
Well, I see that and I think, where
$1 billion.
Where do we come up with this number?
So
I know that there are it's data provided to Market Watch from Apex Marketing. There are companies that specialize in this. We always talk about this, Hutton, with like the Music City Bowl. Yeah. Right? The economic impact on Nashville was $3.5 billion. So
they're adding up the
Or if this event
cost.
comes, it's going to have this much.
Yeah.
And it's like some make-believe Venn diagram of restaurant sales tax and hotel tax and ticket price and how many people came in and then how many people didn't go to the game and bars and everything. But I see this and I'm like, it's monopoly money. Like it's make-believe. We don't really know the actual number.
So they're adding
up. It's a big number. I'm not denying
the cost of
I'm not denying she's helped
impressions.
the NFL. Right? No one's denying that she hasn't helped the NFL. I'm not denying that in terms of broader reach. But the fact that we came up with $366,753,290.
Well, but it's the impressions that they're adding up. So they have the physical numbers on the merchandise and all that. But the NFL has said their TikTok account is made up of half women. And that's 2024, whenever they can account for that.
Well, and this is one, the metric measures value across social media, TV, radio, digital news, and print news. So it's like, what is the coverage? The coverage that she brought to the league, they're saying is over $1 billion worth of marketing. I understand the concept. I'm going to poke holes into how exact of a science this is.
Sure, yeah.
So we could sum this up and say, Taylor Swift has brought a lot of value to the NFL because she's attracted a lot of female viewers that otherwise wouldn't be watching the NFL. I'm going to let you in on something. If you came to the league because of Taylor Swift, you're probably not consuming a lot of other NFL product. You're just watching the Chiefs games, which is fine. But again, how much is that really valued? It's a lot. I laugh at the exact numbers down to the dollar that they have for these.
Oh, it is to the
this
penny.
Metric.
Yeah.
You know that she has made $634,304,163 exactly, according to Market Watch at Apex Marketing.
Social media, TV, radio,
whatever.
digital news, and print news is what they looking at.
I feel like you and I could start a business that says this is all we do and hire like 2 data analysts from Harvard or MIT to work for us, and then we just go and pitch ourselves and like, hey, you know that number that Market Watch gave you?
It's wrong.
I can give you a bigger number.
Yeah, we're going to give you to the penny.
I'm going to give you a bigger number to sell to your clients. Like we're going to bid it out.
Oh.
Like they say $1 billion. Our data with our team back in our lab right now, Hutton, says $1.5,455,362 to the exact number.
But we're
going to give you a better number than that.
But do you think if she were dating a Major League Baseball player, it would be to the same level? Because of the attention to the NFL, the national broadcast aspect of it, right? Like the appeal is also the NFL in this. There's a part of that, right? Because it's on in your household whenever the Swiftie comes into the room or at the bar, you know? Like if I'm watching, if we're watching a random, let's just say a random baseball game in June, and Taylor Swift's there, I'm not so sure if she's dating a Kansas City Royals player. I still have people that'll walk in and be like, have they shown Taylor yet? If I'm watching the NFL.
Yeah, I think
it
would be to me a bigger benefit.
It would be a huge benefit, but this number, I'm saying.
A sport that needs it more. Like the NFL didn't necessarily need it.
But they knew how to capitalize on it.
Of course.
Yeah.
But my point being like it's like 2x, 1.15x for the NFL, and it'd be like 10x for that Major League Baseball team. If she's dating a Philadelphia Philly, talking about an area where she's from originally.
Yeah, right.
Like the benefit to the Phillies bottom dollar of marketing reach is so much greater than what it was before. But the NFL is such a monster in and to itself that it's not, I don't know, it's not as big.
You had a channel.
It's both bigger and not as big, if that makes sense. It's bigger because there's already more eyeballs on it when she's there, but it's not as big because while she's going to be a big benefit to them, they don't need it as much as, let's say, some baseball team we're not paying as much attention to, or some NHL team if she starts going to every game in a suite because she's dating an NHL star.
The credit,
she's dating Austin Matthews and going to the Toronto Maple Leafs games all the time.
But you wouldn't
that's a big market team, that makes them that much bigger.
Right. But you wouldn't have the ability to, if you're a Taylor Swift fan, flip it on Fox right now because Chicago's playing in a blowout loss to the Kansas City Chiefs, but Taylor's there.
Yeah.
You know how to get to that channel.
Yeah.
It's just remarkable how it blew up. It really is. And it continues. It's still there for the league. That
continues right up until Travis officially announces his retirement.
Well,
it should be any day now.
Then for her, she'll write a new album.
Yeah, he'll go star in the Happy Gilmore 3 after that, after shooting Happy Gilmore 2.
Where is Matthew Stafford going to star in the league? According to reports, Tom Pelissero, we've got Stafford having the ability to shop around a bit with his agent. Here's more.
What is going on with the Rams and Stafford? Is there really a there? What is happening, since that is such a crucial setup for the free agency season? And I don't even know if this does come to a head. It would come in time for the free agency season unless Stafford forces it to do that. What is the deal here?
Well, first of all, go back to a year ago, Rich, and this also came to the forefront, and there was an off-season long conversation about Matthew Stafford and what the numbers should be on his contract. Because based on the deal that he's been on in LA, it's below the market of the top 10, top 15 type of quarterbacks in the NFL. Last year, right at the start of training camp, I believe it was, he agreed to a new deal that actually wiped out his 2025 guarantees in exchange for a bump in 2024 that also included a $4 million roster bonus that's due next month. And so the idea was this was a year-to-year type of situation for Matthew Stafford. Anytime you're giving up future guarantees, which almost never happens, you're basically saying that, hey, we're going to reanalyze this, next year. And this is something that Tom Brady in the later stages of his career was always doing with New England. There's other examples of quarterbacks who just, when you're not going to make a long-term commitment from either perspective, from the team or the player, it makes sense from a cap perspective as well as just from a simplicity of continuing to maintain a relationship perspective to analyze it every year. So with Stafford, he's only due $27 million in 2025, which is clearly, below the line of what the top quarterbacks are making. And my understanding has been that the Rams have been in conversations with his agent, that they've also given his agent permission to talk to other clubs and just figure out, hey, if he became available, if there were a trade, what would the numbers be elsewhere here? And that takes care of multiple things. It takes care of, number one, what Matthew Stafford could get if we got to a trade, because you wouldn't be able to execute a Matthew Stafford trade without having a new deal in place. But also it gives the Rams an idea and Stafford an idea of, hey, we're going to try to work together. Are we going to be able to work out a new contract to keep him in LA? It certainly sounds as if the priority is for Stafford to return to the LA Rams. But again, this went all the way into July, if not August last year, before they were able to work out a deal. We'll see exactly what direction this goes here. But to the point that you made at the top, it would make sense for this to one way or another come to a head within the next few weeks here, because everybody is going to need an alternative if they're not able to work something out in LA.
There's Pelissero, the Rich Eisen Show. They've just started phase one of the trade process. That's what the Rams have granted access to. Crazy story, because Stafford is still at the very top of the quarterback pecking order. If you're just starting to list off guys, he's that good. He's 37 years old. It's not like the dude is 42. He's 37 years old, and he can pull a Tom Brady right here. He could go somewhere else and help a team win a Super Bowl after he's won in LA.
He also quarterbacked the team that played the Eagles far closer than anyone in the playoffs. I mean, they're 28-22. They were closer to the Eagles than anyone else in the postseason this past year.
Far better player than I think he gets credit for. And his wife's playing a factor in it, too. I mean, that's fine. They can have the family aspect to it, but she's also saying things on social media.
Was she one out of LA?
Well, she just says we're willing to, we want more than the $27 million, So, just saying, there's some Southern teams close to Georgia,
What Mama wants, Mama
close
gets.
to the Atlanta Athletic Club,
Yep.
where he is a member.